Absolutely, go for it.
Okie dokie, fantastic. So good morning and welcome everyone to the first of two business startup sessions. My name is Aisha Elliott and I currently work for Somerset Business Agency. We are based over in Langport and I work there as primarily a business advisor, and I also run my own business as a consultant on a part-time basis. So we have teamed up with CCS, Somerset Diverse Communities, to deliver this programme for you today. And I do hope that it is useful and provides you with all of the information that you need to get your own business started. It's up to you if you want to take some notes, and there will of course be time to ask any questions that you may have. I have been told that there are a number of Polish speakers here today. So if there are any issues with translation, we have Michał here on the call. I believe most of you are familiar with him and he is happy to help where or if he can. So today's session is all about you, your business idea, the types of businesses there are, and a little bit about finance. So again, if you have any questions or queries throughout the session, I'm more than happy to help, and I will be making time for that to go through. So the first thing that we want to ask ourselves when making the move to being business owners is, why do I want to run my own business? And a lot of people, they don't really think about the true reasons why they want to take this step. So think about what do you think makes it a good option for now? Like, why is now the right time for you? Think about the good and bad things about starting a new business. So that is your pros and cons, positives and negatives, and weigh them up. And also start thinking about mapping out what could change in your life if you start your own business. So depending on your financial situation, it could be that starting your own business will change the amount of money you have coming in. It might be that you will need to work part-time whilst running your own business. It might make a difference in terms of childcare. So it's worth thinking about all of those aspects of your life that may change when you do set up your own business, and use these points to establish why you want to run your own business. The next thing to consider is, have you got what it takes? So starting a business is hard work, and the most important thing when it comes to your business is you. People will buy into you as a person. They will come back and use your service because of you, because they like you. But you also have to remember that when it comes to starting up a new business, there are a lot of different functions or jobs that need to be done in order to make it run properly. So, for example, if you were to start up a mechanics, you not only need to fix the cars, but you also will need to market your business. You will need to advertise. You will need to do things like the finances, the tax, invoices, things like that. And it's about being determined, confident, strong, and prepared. And also remember that if you don't feel confident to do some of these tasks, you can get somebody else to help you. That's no issue at all. So if you need an accountant to help you with your taxes, reach out to somebody that can help you. And thank you very much, Michał. We've got him in the chat, just confirming he's happy to answer any questions in Polish if you want to pop those into the chat function. So once you've considered whether you've got what it takes, whether you've got the grit, the determination, the strength, and the confidence, it's worth establishing what type of business you want to run. And the reason I bring that in is because there are a number of different types of business that you can run. So the first one for us to look at um, is what we call starting a business from scratch. Now, from scratch means to start your business from nothing on your own. So it's the most common route to business. So, for example, if I wanted to start a cleaning company from scratch, it would be a situation where I would get all of my materials, I would market the business, so put out advertisements, and I would then go complete the jobs and take in the money. So it's my own business with all of my own stuff, and I've set up all the rules and the processes. Um, or you can buy a business. So buying a business is a situation where, say, you've got a friend who owns a shop, it's already running, but they don't want to run it anymore. They can sell it to you and you can run it as your own. You will then be that business owner, but it's already been set up and all the equipment is there. And most likely, most of the rules and practices will be in place. Now, a franchise is quite similar to this, but it does have some key differences. So, with a franchise, this is like a chain business. We all would have seen franchises, things like McDonald's, Burger King, Subway. And what you can do is buy a branch of one of those businesses. They already have a formula that works. So they will tell you how much you need to order, when you need to order it, how to speak to customers, how you need to dress. Everything is set out for you. It's just a case of having the funds initially to be able to get it set up. Um, so I can see we've got a question here in the chat.
Yes.
Michal.
Yes, Aisha. So basically, Andrzej is asking whether there's any support, governmental support, in order to open your own business, and whether there's any grant that could help you to open your own business.
So government support that varies. There is an organisation called the Startup Loan Company. And they effectively offer low interest loans of up to £25,000 to new businesses at a repayment rate of 6%. I will go into talking about APRs and things like that in just a brief moment. Grants, they do pop up all the time, but of course they are time sensitive, and there's also quite often quite stringent criteria that you would need to adhere to. And in order to be able to apply for a grant, you need to have certain things in place, such as your business plan, and to have the ability to be able to write funding bids. And that's something that does take time, and you would probably require support from an outsider to be able to make that happen. I appreciate that's a bit of a vague answer, but that's kind of the reality of where you are. But if anybody is on benefits, there is what is called the NEA program, the New Enterprise Allowance, and you can request from your job coach to be put forward for this. And once you're trading for the first 6 months, you would get a top up of £65 a week. And following that, I believe that reduces to £32 a week for the next 6 months. Okie dokie. I do hope that that answers that question sufficiently. So when looking at the type of business you want to run, it all depends again on the type of person you are. So starting from scratch is the most common, but some people, they feel confident or comfortable having the rules set out for them. And that's where they might look at things like franchises. So it's for you to decide the type of business that you want to run. And just checking the chat now. Okie dokie. So now we want to look at your business idea. Excuse me. So there have been, I've received a document showing the types of businesses that you all want to start, and they are all extremely varied. You know, we've got mechanics, shop owners, cleaners, and it's about knowing your business. So once you've established what your business idea is, so you know, mechanics, cleaner, etc., you need to explore whether you need any training, qualifications, or licenses in order to operate your business. So to give an example, on the basis of the mechanic, you would of course need to be trained and qualified as a mechanic to complete those works on cars. But then there's also a variety of other things that need to be taken into consideration. So looking at things like public liability insurance. If there is an accident in your workplace, you need to be insured in order to make sure that that none of that comes back to you and there's no financial outlay on your part. And you also need to explore why your business will work. And you will often be able to establish this by doing what is called market research. So in terms of market research, you are considering what it is that makes your business special or unique so that people will want to use your product or service. So if you don't know why people will buy from you, it's definitely worth doing some of this market research. And this means contacting people, finding out information about your industry, and finding out where your business will fit in that market. So you can see on the screen here, we have the internal circle, so the circle in the middle. And in the top left corner, it shows our suppliers, producers, and deliverers. So think about, where do you get the items that you sell from? Do you need to do anything to these items in order to get them ready for sale? So this is what raw or finished means. So it may be that you are a carpenter, you will buy the wood as a raw product, and then it is for you to finish it into a product for your customer to buy. And then looking at things like labor costs. If you need to finish an item, is that done by yourself? Is that done by somebody else? And is that going to cost you a significant amount of money to be able to make that happen? We then move down and we're looking at the bottom left at the competition. So these are businesses that are similar to yours. They are in the same sort of area, and you need to have a think about who they are, where they're based, and as a result, how successful they are. How do they perform? Then we look at the top right. We have the market. So consider the size of the market. So how many businesses are there and how many customers are there operating in that industry? Have a think about whether there are any times in the year where sales are higher for your industry than others. So we know that some businesses do very well at Christmas time, some do very well at Easter or in the summer, things like that. And then in the bottom right, we have your customers. So think about your customer profile. Who is buying from you? What do they look like to you? So think about things like their gender, their income, their interests, their needs, and their buying habits. if you know who you are trying to sell to, you can tailor your product or service specifically to them. And then in the outside circle, this shows our outside factors. So these could be political, economic, social, technological, environmental, or legal. So these are things that we've seen quite a lot of lately. Things such as the COVID-19 pandemic that has changed the shape of the market massively. And also things like Brexit, it's changed how we trade with the rest of the world. So think about how that has an impact on your business. Okie dokie. So I'm seeing some things come into the chat now. Just want
Don't worry, Aisha. I'm just answering to Andrzej's questions in Polish. Don't worry.
Okay, no problem at all. That's fantastic. Michał, please do shout at me if you have any questions that you need the answers to. Brilliant. Okay, so now we've had a look at the business and the market that your business sits in. We're now just going to move on to have a very quick look at personal finance. So this is your own finances as an individual, and this will have an impact on your business. So we're going to have a look at some definitions that I would like to explore. So these are some difficult or tricky words that we often have in finance, and it can make it really difficult to obtain finance, to get finance, or to understand what these things mean if they haven't been adequately explained. So I'm just going to run through a few of these with you. So the first thing is the difference between debit cards, credit cards, and loans. So a debit card is a payment card that will deduct money directly from your bank account to pay for goods and services. So that's money that you already own, money that's in your bank. It hasn't been loaned to you. It's your personal money. A credit card is very similar, except it's not your money. A credit card will allow you to borrow money from the card issuer up to a certain limit in order to purchase items or withdraw cash. So basically, you are borrowing money from your bank by using that card. And many lenders will provide an interest-free period. So what this means is that you will only pay back what you use at that time. But be careful, because once that period ends, you could end up paying way over the outstanding balance. So a credit card will provide you with a line of credit, something that can be used time and time again. But as I say, be careful of those interest-free periods, because once that period ends, you'll be looking at paying an interest rate. And we'll go into a little bit of that in just a moment. Now, the difference between a credit card and a loan is that a loan occurs when the lender provides the customer with a lump sum of money. So rather than you using your card and making a payment, your bank will give you, say, £5,000. And it's for you then to use that money as you like, and you will then have to pay that back on a monthly basis. So you would have to pay that back until the balance reached zero. And it's likely that a loan would have a lower interest rate than a credit card. So it's worth looking at these options if you do need to borrow money. So now we want to look at APR. So how do we know how much interest or additional fees we have to pay when we borrow money? And that means we look at this thing called APR. And that means annual percentage rate. So the easiest way to demonstrate this is with an example. So if I borrow £100 and I don't settle the balance in full with an APR, an annual percentage rate of 20%, this means that over the year, I will have to pay the bank 20% of the outstanding amount. So I will pay back £120. This additional amount on top of the £100 would be split across the year, so over the course of the 12 months, and therefore would increase my repayment by around £1.67 per month. Now, this is on the basis of borrowing £100, but I'm sure you can see that as you start getting into borrowing thousands of pounds, this monthly repayment amount could be increased significantly. Often, well, always in fact, any debt or bank accounts that you have will be shown on your credit rating or credit report. So your credit file is a huge factor in whether you will be able to get credit and at what APR. So the better your credit rating, the lower interest rate you will be able to get. So information such as your address, electoral roll status, current outstanding debt, and missed payments will all be held within a central database to make up that credit score. And you can check this for free. So even if you get something like an app on your phone, you can get Equifax, ClearScore, Experian, Credit Karma, and you just pop in your details, and within about 5 minutes, you'll be able to get access to your own credit report, and you'll be able to see where you stand in terms of being able to obtain any credit and how you can improve that credit rating for the future. So when looking at your credit score, you may see that you have what is called a default. So a default is when a direct debit payment is missed, and this will remain on your credit score for a period of 6 years. This makes it much more difficult to obtain credit. So if payments are continually missed, you may end up being taken to court and therefore issued with what is called a CCJ. So this stands for County Court Judgment, and that will seriously affect your ability to get credit. But all is not lost. If you struggle to get credit, you may be able to get a guarantor. And this is somebody that has good credit and is in a good financial position that could guarantee your loan. So in other words, if you can't pay, your guarantor will be called upon in order to pay that debt. And finally, we're looking at equity. So equity is the value that you have in an asset. So to give a very basic example, if I buy a house for £100,000, once I purchase it, its value goes up to £110,000. I will then have £10,000 worth of equity. So that's the value that I have. I have £10,000 in value, and I have the £100,000 worth of debt from purchasing the house. So that there is effectively what equity is. So these are some quite useful terms that you will see fairly regularly in the world of finance and business, and are very much worth keeping in mind. So when it comes to personal finance, you will need to remember that self-employment generally comes with irregular income. So consider how you intend to finance both yourself, so your personal life, as well as the business, particularly in the earlier stages. Think about whether you might need to continue working whilst your business is growing. Um, and in order to figure out how much money you need, you will need to look at things like your outgoings. So do a personal survival budget. So that's looking at things like your rent or mortgage, bills, debts, your needs, and your wants. So when completing a personal survival budget, look at your household running costs and do not take into consideration any money that your new business might potentially make, as there is no guarantee of it at this stage. So be realistic and be honest with yourself. include all money from all sources. So that's money that's coming into your home. So whether that's from your partner, any rented rooms, if you've got grown-up children paying you bits of rent, or if you've got a part-time job. So there is an example of a personal survival budget here. So it's just a small document that details all of your outgoings, and then you'll be able to see if there is a surplus or a shortfall. So whether you've got more money than you need or less money than you need. And we at Somerset Business Agency, we are happy to provide blank copies of this to be distributed if you do want to complete your own. And I see here another question has come into the chat.
Yes, so Andrzej, basically, he's interested more in terms of properties. Apparently, he's interested in buying some kind of unit, and he just wonders whether he needs to pay a business rate for that or not. And he just looking for the confirmation whether if that unit it's not related to the business, whether he needs to pay the business rate, and if he will decide to use that unit, whether he needs to pay that business rate or not.
So is this, sorry, just to be clear, is this for his own property that he's got and potentially wants to run the business from it, or?
I will double check. Andrzej, czy możesz wyjaśnić mi, o co dokładnie chodzi?
No chodzi mi na przykład, bo ja się przymierzam do wzięcia w kredyt jakąś nieruchomość, jest to garaż. No i przede wszystkim zależne jest to, co kupię, co mi się uda, bo teraz różnie poznikały trochę garaże, ale jest zależne, jak duży bym kupił, bo jeżeli bym kupił taki wystarczająco duży, żeby go podzielić na dwa i jedną część wynajmować, a w drugiej samemu działać, taką biorę opcję a jak nie, to jakiś mniejszy, żebym sam na przykład działał. I czy na przykład jak biorę właśnie w tym, jak to jest, bo wiadomo, no biznes rozkręcić, ja patrzę lakiernictwo, blacharstwo, no to też wiadomo, że tam trzeba duże pieniądze wsadzić w oprzyrządowanie tego i chodzi mi o to właśnie, że na przykład, nie wiem, kupię teraz nieruchomość, a na przykład za rok się przyłożę do tego, żeby otworzyć coś w nim tak już z kopyta, czy po prostu przez ten, powiedzmy, rok czasu, jaki ja podatek muszę płacić od takiej nieruchomości. Bo ja wiem, że to jest wszystko związane, gdzie jest ten od powierzchni, bo już się orientowałem i ten business rate zamykało mi drogę do tworzenia jakiegokolwiek biznesu, bo business rate wychodził albo tyle samo, albo nawet więcej niż sam rent.
Okay, zapytam. Okay, Aisha, so basically Andrzej is thinking about buying a unit, something like garage, and perhaps they're gonna be, there's an opportunity a possibility that he will open his own business in the future and use that unit in the future. But at the moment, for the first year, he said that it would require from him to prepare himself better. And he just wondering whether, before he will open his own business, whether he needs to pay any business rates for that unit.
Understood. So if there is not a business functioning from that unit, then you wouldn't need to pay business rates. But what I will say is that there is quite often, well, there would be business rate relief. So this is something that you can look up on Google, and basically what it means is that if the property you are using has a rateable value of less than 15,000, you can get relief on your business rates. So at the moment, business rates are probably not something that are going to be a huge concern to most of these small businesses at the moment, as they will get that relief. But that would need to be explored at the point of starting the business.
Right. Thank you. Czyli tak jak wcześniej wspomniałem w komentarzu, jeżeli dopóki nieruchomość nie jest powiązana z biznesem, nie przynosi żadnego przychodu, nie jest powiązana właśnie z robieniem biznesu, nie trzeba płacić żadnego podatku. jest wyłączona, natomiast jeżeli zostanie włączona ta nieruchomość już do prowadzenia swojego biznesu, to można skorzystać jeszcze z takiej ulgi podatkowej odnośnie business rate, w zależności jaka jest wartość danej nieruchomości. I wtedy tą wartość trzeba sobie wygooglować i pewne ulgi są podatkowe powiązane właśnie z kwotą, z wartością danej nieruchomości. Jeżeli dobrze pamiętam, jeszcze raz sprawdzę. Aisha, could you just remind me, please, in terms of that business rate relief, what was the value of the property?
The rateable value is £15,000, and there is a calculator on the Gov website where you can estimate your business rates and things like that, so you can get a good idea of what may be owed.
Great, thank you. So, jeżeli, czyli 15 000, jeżeli tyle nie kosztuje, jeżeli kosztuje, to już można właśnie odliczyć sobie tą ulgę podatkową i na stronie rządowej wpisuje się wartość tej nieruchomości, która będzie używana do biznesu i ten kalkulator wypisuje, jaka ulga podatkowa się należy.
No to znalazłem. Jeszcze tam zadałem pytanie, czy jak biorę na przykład nieruchomość, w której prowadzę biznes w raty, czyli tam na mortgage, czy chociaż oprocentowanie tego kredytu można odliczać od dochodu?
Które oprocentowanie, przepraszam?
Oprocentowanie chociaż albo ratę mortgage'u, czy oprocentowanie tego kredytu, czy można odliczać od dochodu od dochodu, od podatku dochodowego?
Okay, and the second question that Andrzej has is he's wondering whether if he will buy any property related to his business, but obviously he will take the mortgage for that, and he's just wondering whether there's a percentage, an extra money that he needs to pay back, obviously, and he's just wondering whether in terms of the tax money in the end of the year, whether he can calculate that in order to get that money back.
What is it? Would it? I mean, if it's a personal mortgage, then I believe if part of your property is used specifically for work, then you can claim back some of your expenses. But because what I would say, because of where we are at this point in terms of business startup, this is the sort of thing that you would really want to get a specialist accountant, well, not a specialist accountant, just an accountant who specializes in these things to go through with you what your taxation obligations would be, as this is just very much a kind of brief overview of how to get these things in place.
Oh, thank you. Czyli jeżeli jest powiązany, tak, można sobie to potem odliczyć, ale to trzeba skonsultować z księgowym. A ze względu na naturę tego webinara dzisiaj mówimy o takim otwarciu ogólnie, nie zagłębiając się bardzo w szczegóły, zwłaszcza, że natura każdego biznesu jest troszkę inna i to trzeba...
No, rozumiem, dobra. Dzięki. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to explore some company structures and tax now. So we're going to be looking at expenses, etc. And we will be focusing on sole trade and limited companies, as these are the most common or the most usual company structures that you will see. So the first one is sole traders. So if you are a sole trader, it means that you run your own business as an individual and you are self-employed. So you keep all of the business's profits after you've paid tax on them, but you are personally responsible for any losses that your business makes financially. There are insurances that you can get that means that you are basically what we call indemnified from these losses. So you will be protected from these losses if you do take out this type of insurance. You must follow certain rules on running and naming your business. And you need to check what counts as self-employed. So as you can see, there's a bit here that's highlighted, and I will be sending a copy of this presentation over to CCS to distribute. So if you do just want to have a click on there, you'll be able to see your sort of status in terms of whether you're self-employed. And it's worth noting that sole traders make up almost 63% of UK businesses, according to the Office of National Statistics. And sole traders, the tax benefit is that they only pay tax on their tax. So that's money earned after your expenses are incurred. So there's not much different about being a sole trader in a limited company. You can still be VAT registered, you can still employ staff, but there's no real separation of the business and personal assets, so it's all the same. And like I said a moment ago, look at insurance to cover your debt liabilities. If finance and tax is something that you're not overly confident on, look at your getting your self-assessment tax return done by a bookkeeper or an accountant. Now, with your self-assessment tax return, you would need to register as a sole trader. So you need to do that if you've earned more than £1,000 from self-employment. You need to prove you're self-employed, and you will want to make the voluntary Class 2 national insurance payments, as this helps you to qualify for certain benefits. And if you do end up in a situation where you haven't paid those national insurance contributions, then it might mean that in the future you won't be able to access the things that you need to. You will need to register for a unique tax reference, as well as a government gateway ID and password. So these things, when you get your government gateway, it's a case of logging in via the website, you enter your unique tax reference, and then you will be directed to submit a self-assessment tax return. So your self-assessment tax return needs to be filed in the following tax year end. So if I was to start my business today, I don't need to submit a tax return until the end of the next tax year. So that would be not this April 5th, but the following one. So we need to look at things like deadlines. So if you are filing via a paper-based system, your deadline is the 31st of October. And if you are filing online, it is the 31st of January, respectively. And you will be required to make a payment on the 31st of January for half, generally, of the taxable amount. Now, when we are looking at the current tax and national insurance rates for sole traders, it's worth noting that these do usually change every April. Right, sorry, bear with me. There's just another question come into the chat.
So the question is whether the presentation is going to be sent to the participants.
Yes, we can arrange for that. That's no problem at all.
Thank you.
So no problem. So the currents usually do change every April. But at present, your Class 2 national insurance would be £3.05 a week. Your Class 4 national insurance is 9% of your profit between £9,500 and £50,000. Anything over this amount is charged at an additional 2%. Your income tax, so you have a personal allowance of £12,500. That is what you can earn without paying any tax. After that amount, you have to pay 20% of your income up to an amount of £50,000. And once we get over the £50,000 mark, it is 40%. So income tax can be due on any income, so not just your self-employed income that you have received in that tax year. And then we look at claiming expenses. So you can only claim expenses for the costs that relate to your business. So your mobile phone bill for the year is £200. You might spend £130 on personal calls and then £70 on business calls. So therefore, you could only claim £70 of that bill for business expenses. If you work at home, you may be able to claim for a proportion of your costs. So that's things like heating, electric, council tax, mortgage or rent, internet and telephone use. Now, sometimes it can mean making very complicated calculations to work out your business expenses, but there are such things as what we call simplified expenses. So these are flat rates or just standard amounts that you can use for things like vehicles, working from home, living on your business premises. And there is a simplified expenses checker that you can use to compare what you could claim with those simplified expenses. So there is a link in this presentation. There is a link in the presentation that you'll receive a copy of that you can then check your simplified expenses. So there is a question here in the chat. So Michał, would you be able to?
Basically, Andrzej is asking whether if you earn more than 50k per year, whether you obviously you are paying that 40% of tax, but then do you still need to pay that 9% for national insurance?
Yes, you do. So the 40% is it's not 40% of the whole 50,000. It's any amount over 50,000 that is then taxed at 40%. But yes, you will still need to make your national insurance contributions. Okay.
So it's really 49% over top the 50,000, yeah?
Yes, but as I say, it's only for the amount over 50,000. So anything up, so 12,500 is tax free. From 12,500 to 50 is still 20%, and then anything over that that 50%, you're looking at paying a higher rate.
Okay, so 40% plus 9, so it's 49 over the.
Yes, and then you've got the £3.05 for the class 2 national insurance as well, and that's on a weekly basis.
Sure, just to clarify, it's actually the 50k is actually the profit, so it's not like turnover 50k. Andrzej, is from a profit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I understand.
So,
I know, but last time because in my workplace the many people has more than 50k, and and everybody say 40% tax, but I asked, is 40% included national insurance or plus none? And nobody knew it really, because you know, for me at the moment, if I'm stay there, my money is around 48, I think, thousand a year. So they say to me, if I take overtimes, they really I have less than standard money, so the basic money. So I just wanted to ask, because you know, if I take the overtimes, it for me no sense, because I work at the moment a lot hours, so take more and has less, so it's nonsensible.
Yeah, so it's the 40% does not include your national insurance contributions.
I've got also another one question. Because I'm self-employed, like I don't know, like that, but because I was self-employed before I started a new job. 6 weeks ago I started a new job, but they also, it's like self-employed but contractor, self-employed contractor. So they pay me.
Yeah.
They pay me everything they pay, but I'm still like self-employed. They pay me pension, they pay me
so they
holiday, but I didn't shut self-employed in HMRC or something. I forgot in the revenue. I'm still
Okay.
self-employed, like last year.
Mhm.
And if I want to any course for my new job, can I take off this from tax, the cost of tax? Because course what I want to do will cost me around 5 grand. So can I write off from tax or not?
If the course relates to your business, then yes, that's something that you can class as an expense and you can write off. Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. And doesn't matter. I don't know how it's different really the self-employed contractor. That is, I don't
So
know.
do they take the tax from you already when you get paid?
Yeah, they pay everything. They
Yeah.
pay extra pension, but I'm still like self-employed. I don't stand. I
Yeah.
don't stand
So
really
that what it sounds to me. Again, this may be something that you would check with an accountant, but it sounds like you are
yeah.
on what is called the CIS scheme. So
Mhm.
that's the construction industry scheme. So that's where the tax is already taken and deducted from your pay. And then when you go to do your self-assessment tax return,
Yeah, I
they
forgot.
will
Yeah,
give it
yeah,
back.
you're right. Yeah, you're right, because it's construction, and I
Yeah,
worked before. They also taken my UTR number,
yeah.
and
So
they pay. Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
once you
yeah.
do your self-assessment tax return, it's at that point that they will calculate whether you have over or underpaid. You will most likely have overpaid because they won't have taken into account your tax-free amount of 12,500. So it's most likely that at the end of the tax year, you will get what is called a rebate and will get a little bit of money back. But again, I would highly recommend checking that with your accountant at the end of the tax year.
Okay, okay, I understand now.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
No problem. So we're now just going to be having a look at limited companies. So as a director of a limited company, so what you'd need to do is incept the business. So that means creating the business on Companies House. And as a director, you are entitled to be an employee of the company. So this means that you can take a salary via PAYE. And also, as a shareholder, you are entitled to dividends. So this is a portion of the profit that is left over from the business. So it's your money. And if you choose, you can take that money as a combination of these things. So you can take a salary and you can have dividends as well. This makes good financial sense at present because companies pay corporation tax at a rate of 19%. And once the tax has been paid, then you get those dividends and you've only paid 19% tax rather than paying the 20% plus the national insurance contributions. And moving forward. So when we look at things like partnerships, LLPs, and social ventures, these are all other kinds of business structure. But these are much more specific and complex. So we would definitely advise that you get specialist professional advice because the level of advice required will vary depending on how sophisticated your business is. I think it's very unlikely that anybody on this course today is going to be looking at setting up things like LLPs and community interest companies, things like that, as they are quite detailed and they're not generally the sorts of businesses that you would open on a whim or without that kind of special backing. So now we are just going to very briefly look at how we can fund our business ventures and where we can get that funding from. So all of these options here, they come with their own good points, bad points, pros and cons, positives and negatives, however you choose to put that. You can fund your business by, you've got your own savings. You could get loan from a family, banks, private investors, depending on your age, the Prince's Trust, things like Big Issue Invest and Innovate UK for innovation vouchers, and then things like crowdfunding. So there are websites like Kickstarter, where you can put your business on there. And if people think it's a great idea, they can donate money for you to develop that business. And then at the bottom, there is just a couple of links. One of those is to the Somerset Business Agency website. We try and keep that as updated as possible with different finance options, routes to finance, links to how you can get things like loans. And then, of course, the Gov UK website that will have a list of financial support that businesses can receive in your particular area. So now I just want us to very quickly explore some of the pros and cons of funding your own business. So if you were to pay for your business using your own savings, the good thing about that is that you know how much money there is. You're not spending lots of time trying to get finance, and you have more control over how that money is spent because it's yours to play with. On the other hand, if you are looking at sourcing finance from outside, so getting a loan, then you will have extra money, or what we call working capital, which would provide a safety net for the business. It's much easier for you to purchase assets as you'll have that money available. And if you are fortunate enough to be able to get a grant, these do not need repaying. So this is basically money that you can use for your business without having any financial burden effectively. So that now brings us to the end of today's session, and we have explored a lot of quite complicated concepts. So if anybody has any questions at this point, please do feel free to ask.
Yeah, so I've got a question regarding LTD, if that's okay. I'm self-employed at the moment, and I was thinking to open another business as a limited company, and I got some information from government side, from my accountant, and but I've heard that it's only sensible to open it when your turnover is more than 20k. Why is that? Have you heard that, or would you agree with that?
That's a difficult one. So it's not something that I've heard before in terms of the 20k thing, but I think the reason why people would say that is because with limited companies, you have what we call a lot more hoops to jump through. So you have to do a lot more to get the company set up. And then there's a lot more regulation in terms of what you can and can't do. And also, you know, it protects you from any financial problems or debt that there may be. And it could just be that people's thoughts on that is that it's not worth getting that sort of protection if you're only working on such a small scale. But as far as I know, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from setting up that limited company, and there's nothing that would it wouldn't negatively impact you if you did want to go with the limited option.
That was my another question, because self-employed is easy for me because I was doing it for many years, but LTD I haven't tried, and I always say to my students that it's a really good idea to open self-employment as a sole trader, just to play with it, you know, a little bit at first, because it doesn't cost anything. And I was wondering if LTD is the same thing. Would you agree with that?
What do you mean in terms of?
Is there any charges you have to pay? Because that's what happens in Poland. In Poland, you have to pay some like contributions, even if you don't have profits. That's why we're really concerned about opening anything.
So it's a bit different to that. So you don't have to pay regardless of if your company is trading, but there are certain things that you need to do. So it's quite cheap, but it does cost money to incept or create the company. And then you also do need to file, well, it depends. If you're VAT registered, you'll need to do a VAT return. And then you also have your end of year accounts. So you'd need to most likely pay for somebody to do those end of year accounts. And then not only that, you as an individual would also have to do most likely a self-assessment tax return as well. So that's more money that you're spending out on having an accountant to assist you with those sorts of things.
Okay.
And so that is something that you might want to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Aisha.
No problem. Does anybody else have any queries? I've had quite a lot of questions as we've gone through today, which has been fantastic.
Hello. I just have a quick question. As self-employed, if it comes to all of the bills that we need to take, all of our spending, what sort of invoices that we have to keep it, and for how long?
For your sorry, do you mean for the things that you've purchased yourself?
Yes, for example, let's say I have a gardening company, and I got a loan for a van, and then in the meantime I got some kind of products that is necessary to carry on with my work. So generally, I just want to know for how long I need to keep all of the records. Is it 5 years or is it 1 year?
6 years. 6 years to keep all of your financial records, yeah.
Okay, so basically everything what I spend on it, I need to record it and keep it for 6 years. And then with the time of 6 years, shall I just dispose it, or shall I just keep it somewhere safe in a garage, let's say?
Well, once it's gone past the 6-year period, the reason they say to keep it is just in case HMRC need to do an audit. So if you do your self-assessment tax return and they think that there's something wrong with it, they might then want to look at everything you've purchased, everything you've made, in order just to check that everything is as you say it is. So once that 6-year period is over, it's up to you. You are, if you want to dispose of those things, you're completely welcome to. But if you feel more comfortable holding on to them and keeping them filed away, that's also absolutely fine.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Aisha. That was very helpful.
No problem. And anyone else? Okay.
I've got a question regarding public liability, because you said that it's very important for us to consider that. And because you are actually an advisor, is there any chance to get a public liability for advisors? Like, because normally, you know, that's what I was struggling with. I couldn't find a place where they can sell public liability to me as an advisor.
Okay, so public liability insurance is for most likely if somebody gets hurt, so like injured. So this is most likely going to be, you know, at places like a mechanics or a cleaners where you have things happening that, you know, accidents could happen and someone can hurt themselves. But as an advisor, you can get what is called professional indemnity cover. So if you were to give somebody the wrong advice, and they wanted to take legal action against you, you know, then you would have an insurance in place where that would either potentially pay for any claim that comes, or they would help you go through the courts to make sure that you get that situation rectified.
Oh, that's lovely. I will research that. Thank you so much.
No problem. And Michal, you've got your hand up.
Yes, that's right. I'm just wondering, perhaps it's very naive, but perhaps we could take it for granted. But I do believe it's quite important to mention about that, especially for those who has never had a business, never been self-employed. What's the first step? Whether, because due to the cultural differences and the system is different in our countries as well, in different countries. How are you opening your own business actually? Do you need to go to the council, or it's enough to register yourself online?
So if you're just going for the sole trader option, as in say I decide I want to be a cleaner. I've got my insurance in place, and someone says, yep, no problem, come round, do a clean. It is a case of just getting yourself set up. So with your unique tax reference and your government gateway ID, that's all you need in place to notify the government that you are self-employed. And then it's just a case of filing that tax return. So it's really, really simple in the UK. You can just Google government gateway and you can go through the steps to sign up for that. And that probably takes about 5 minutes. And then the same with the unique tax reference. So if you just Google how to get a UTR, it will take you through those steps and you'll get that most likely, I think, within 10 days, I think is the current wait time. But that's all you need to do in order to get yourself running, unless there are any licenses or qualifications you need. So say if you're setting up a catering business, you do need to notify the council and they'll need to come and do the health and safety checks and things like that. So it does vary depending on the industry, but as a general rule, it's just a case of setting yourself up. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And can you
problem.
Provide actually provide your service before being registered?
Yes, you can indeed. So I won't lie, I'm not entirely sure of how long it needs to be before you notify the government, but I think as long as it's before the end of that tax year, and you get yourself set up so that you can file your tax return in good time, then I think that's absolutely fine.
I've heard that it's 3 months. However, I cannot guarantee it. I cannot research it, but 3 months, I think, you can provide service. And what is really amazing, and it's just mind blowing for us Poles, is that you can run a business, and if you don't earn from it more than £1,000, you don't actually have to even notify about this money. And I wanted to do that for my friend, and I struggled to input details because she earned less than 1,000. And nobody needs to know that you've actually earned that.
Yeah, no, so you're spot on there, and I've just had a very quick look. So it says the latest you can register with HMRC is by the 5th of October, after the end of the tax year during which you became self-employed. So if you started your business in June 2020, you need to be registered with HMRC by the 5th of October 2021.
Wow.
So you've got quite a long time there. Any other questions? Would just like to highlight Somerset Business Agency. We are available. We're just at the end of the phone. We're pretty much all business advisors. So if anybody does want any assistance, please pick up the phone, drop us an email. We've got lots of different resources and more than happy to help where we can. Any other queries before I let you all go?
I just wanted to say, Aisha, that was really, really clear and informative. I mean, I learned so much actually all the way through that, and I think it was amazing. Really, really
wonderful. Thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. And of course, we do have the next session taking place on the 23rd, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. So hopefully I will see all of your faces during there.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Do take care. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.